Hello and welcome to this subject 42890 4G mobile technologies. My name is Kumbesan Chandrasekharan. Everybody calls me Sandy, and I am the subject coordinator as well as the lecturer for this subject. So this subject runs in the autumn semester, and it's a 6 credit point subject, and it's usually intended for those who are in the postgraduate majors in telecommunication engineering and telecommunication networks. Now, I highly recommend that you do the 49048 wireless technology subject prior to the 4G subject, because this subject assumes that you have a good knowledge of wireless technologies. So we'll go ahead. Now this subject here essentially provides an introduction to LTE network. More specifically, we look at the aspects of architecture, the air interface, the quality of service, and so forth. Now, this subject is actually based on an Alcatel-Lucent course, and those of you who are interested could do an Alcatel-Lucent Certified Network Associate in LTE networks by undertaking an additional external examination. So this external examination has got nothing to do with UTS. Now this course is actually vendor agnostic, which means that it does not you to know any specific information about an Alcatel-Lucent piece of equipment. So it's purely based on the LTE standards. And so we move on, and the next thing we're going to look at is some of the important objectives of this subject. So as I said earlier, this subject is intended so that when you complete this subject, you should be able to analyze a 4G mobile network in terms of its evolution. How did it evolve from a 2G and 3G mobile network? What is the architecture of a network? How does the air interface, which is probably the most important interface in a 4G mobile network, what are the different protocols that are used and procedures, and how does a 4G network perform, and some aspects of security in a 4G mobile network. And also, as a result of doing this course and some background knowledge of wireless technologies, you should be able to compare and contrast with previous mobile technologies such as UMTS, HSPA, LTE, and LTE advanced technologies. So you'd also be expected to do some network link planning computation in this subject, and as part of your labs we will also evaluate the performance of a commercial 4G LTE network. Now this subject also contributes to the development of the following faculty course intended learning outcomes and engineering Australia stage 1 competencies, and these competencies are given at the bottom of page 1 and at the top of page 2 of the subject outline. Now in terms of teaching and learning strategies, in this subject in 2006 onwards, we are going to use something called flipped learning model, and this is a model in which students gain exposure to new material outside of the class, usually through readings that are provided on UTS Online, as well as lecture videos. So you're expected to do considerable amount of work before you come to class, and during class time we will essentially use it for tutorials to answer questions and to do some additional problems, and also for assimilating that knowledge through number of strategies. The main strategy that we're going to use in this subject is through quizzes, which will also have some problem solving activities. The lab work that I talked about earlier, that's going to be performed by students outside of class times, preferably in groups to encourage collaborative learning. The subject is designed so that you engage with the subject material by having regular quizzes, and later on I'm going to discuss the program for this subject, and I'll show you where the quizzes are going to come into this subject. And so there's going to be a lot of continuous self-assessment throughout the semester to ensure that your learning is appropriate and on track. Now, generally I've noticed that from past experience, now this subject has been running since 2013. So from past experience, students who miss key learning activities have a high chance of failure. So I'm expecting you to come for the classes well prepared. You should have gone through the quizzes. You should have gone through the lecture video and the subject resources, and you should have some questions that you've prepared to ask and so forth. So as I mentioned earlier, the majority of this course content is based on an Alcatel course, and the Alcatel course has 11 modules, and these 11 modules have been repackaged into 10 sessions in this subject. So let's see what the program is going to be all about. Well, in the first couple of weeks, which is between the 17th and 18th of March, which are the first 2 weeks of the semester, there are no lectures during this time, and this is the time which is referred to as transition to study. And so you are expected to watch the introductory videos, which is the one you're listening to right now, and you are also expected to complete some quizzes related to wireless essentials that are provided on UTS Online, just to make sure that you have the sufficient knowledge to appreciate the rest of the subject. So the first session, the first face-to-face session that we're going to have is on the 24th of March. Now, if you need to find a venue for this subject, you need to go to UTS timetable and find out the venue. I can't give this venue right now because venues can change, and they could even change in the first couple of weeks. So please go to UTS timetable to find out when the subject is going to be held. So in the first face-to-face session, and that's referred to as week 1, I'm just going to introduce the subject, and this is a point at which you may have hundreds of questions you may have to ask me, so you can clarify all your doubts. And then we're going to look at and I'm also going to give you the lecture notes for this subject. There are no soft copies of lecture material. You will get hard copy of a binder which UTS has printed, and this will contain most of the most of the Alcatel Lucent material, and you will have to bring those resources every time you come for a face-to-face class. So in the first in week 1, we're just going to go through section 1 and session 2 of the subject material. I'm asking you to go through session 1 and session 2 material before you come to the class, so that you can clarify all your doubts about that. The following week, which is in week 2, that's on the 31st of March, we are going to start off by having a tutorial which will be essentially a revision of session 1 and 2, followed by your first assessment task. So this is your term quiz 1, which will be based on session 1 and 2, and this is described a little bit more in assessment task 1 a bit later. So this will be a UTS online quiz, and it's an individual assessment task. And after that we will have a tutorial where we'll give you some feedback on the first term exam quiz 1-2. The following week, which is week 3, is a week in which we have no classes. It's a self-study time, so I'm expecting you to go through session 3 and session 4 of this subject. Again, all the resources for sessions 3 and 4 will either be in the binder that will be given to you in the first class, or it will be on UTS Online. Some readings will be available on UTS Online, plus the lecture video recordings from previous semesters. And then in the following week, which is week 4, on the 14th of April, we will have a tutorial in the first hour in which we'll revise session 3 and session 4 material, followed by your second quiz, which I refer to as quiz 3-4 because it's based on session 3 and session 4. And immediately after the quiz you will have some feedback for the quiz. On week 5, 21st of April, you will have no classes on that day. So this is a self-study session, and you have to go through session 5, which is on EU Trans scenarios, and session 6, which is on basic procedures. The following week is referred to as student vacation. Okay, so there are no classes in that week. And then the subsequent week, which is week 6, on the 5th of May, you will have your third quiz. So we'll start off that particular session by having a tutorial in the first hour in which we'll revise through session 5 and 6. And after that revision, you'll go out and do your quiz. And after the quiz, you will stay in the lab and you will get feedback from your tutors on the quiz 5 and 6. The following week, which is week 7, 12th of May, is again a week in which there are no classes. It's a self-study for session 7 and 8. And you should also be doing your labs as you go along. Don't wait till the very end to do your labs. And so you should go through session 7 and session 8 material. And then in the subsequent week, which is week 8, 19th of May, the same format as in previous face-to-face sessions. A tutorial in the first hour in which we revise session 7 and session 8, followed by the fourth quiz, which I refer to as quiz 7-8 because it's based on session 7 and 8, followed by feedback on the quiz, as well as aspects of the lab that you want to clarify. You can clarify that with your tutors. Week number 9 on the 26th of May. Okay, now here we're getting closer to the end of the semester, and again, no classes on that day, on 26th of May. That's the time, that's the week in which you're going to go through session 9 and session 10 material. And on the subsequent week, which is the 2nd of June, in week 10, you will have a tutorial in the first hour to revise session 9 and 10, followed by the 5th and last quiz, quiz 9 and 10, based on session 9 and session 10, followed by a tutorial. And along with the tutorial, there will be a lab discussion, because by this time, by the 2nd of June, you should have completed your lab work, because in the following week, which is week 11 on the 9th of June, that is when you're going to have your lab test. Okay, and so the lab test is again going to be based on UTS Online, and it will be based on the lab documents which are available under assessment task 2 on UTS Online. So, and that'll be the last week of teaching, week 11, and then subsequently you will have a week which is referred to as the final student vacation week, where there are no classes, and then you'll have your exam in the final exam period, and you'll by that time the UTS exam timetable will be announced, and you'll be able to know the date on which your final exam is going to be held. So your final exam is going to be based on all the 10 sessions, and again it will be a UTS Online based exam, a 2-hour UTS Online based exam. Okay, so I do not anticipate any additional cost for this subject unless you are planning to do the Alcatel-Lucent exam externally, in which you will have to pay the relevant service provider with whom you're going to do that exam. So let's go through the assessment task. So I've talked about a couple of assessment tasks. The first assessment task is a term exam. Now I've already told you the dates on which the term exams are going to be held. There are 5 term exams altogether, and these term exams are going to be based on UTS Online. They're individual, and together all the term exams have a weighting of 30%. So basically, if you have 5 term exams, each term exam will have a weighting of 6%. Okay, so as I mentioned, this will be an online quiz using UTS Online, and the solutions for the quiz will be discussed in class following the quiz. Okay, so make sure you try and attend all the quizzes, because if you miss a quiz, your mark will be set to 0, and alternate quizzes will not be provided. The second assessment task is referred to as project or lab, which means the same thing. So here, this is an opportunity for you to do a project which is very similar to what you might do in industry. Essentially, we have students will in this one, students will work in groups, and they will learn a little bit about the LTE physical layer procedures and performance measurements in a bit more detail. So some time ago we took some measurements of from a live LTE Telstra network using a Nemo Handy, and these measurements are available in the form of a spreadsheet, and the labs will involve analyzing these measurements. So as I mentioned again, this project work can be done in groups, but the assessment will be individual. The third assessment task is the final examination, which is worth 50%, and I'll give you more details about the final exam later on in the semester. So one of the important requirements for this subject, the minimum requirement is that you have to obtain at least 50% in the subject overall to pass the subject. So remember, the overall subject mark will be made up of 50% from the final exam, 30% from the term exam, and 20% from the project or lab mark. Okay, and the text, as far as the text is concerned, you will get the Alcatel-Lucent course notes in the first face-to-face session. There are a number of texts, recommended texts, which are available through the UTS library and on UTS Online, and I recommend that you get copies of these textbooks through the UTS library. There are also most of the 3GPP standards are available on the 3GPP web page, and you can download them if they are of interest to you. So that's about all that I want to say at this stage. So once again, I'd like to welcome you to the subject, and I hope you have a good experience going through this subject, and I look forward to meeting you in person in the first class. Best wishes.